control the vertigo.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery, suspense, anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark, and today I'm joined by Sam. Hi Sam.
Hey.
Now you're a Outer Limits fan, aren't you? Really, you did want to be involved in this. I covered the first episode on my own, the Galaxy Being, which I thought was an interesting season opener. Very knowing what I know about the Outer Limits, very typical episode. Now this second episode, the 100 Days of the Dragon, was quite an unusual Outer Limits episode. Have you seen many Outer Limits episodes?
Not many, but the ones I've seen I've liked.
Yes.
So.
This is, I have to tell you, this is an unusual one, because usually there's always one of the showrunners, Joseph Stefano, I think it is, he had this concept of the bear, a thing called the bear, which he wanted to get introduced just before the first ad break, so about 15 minutes or so in. And that thing was either a monster in its own right, or it wasn't a monster but caused a reaction. Or it was, at some point you thought it was a monster and it turned out it wasn't what you thought it was. That was often the conceit in almost all the episodes of season one, if I remember rightly. But this wasn't like that. It was completely different. What do you think of it?
I thought it was kind of boring.
Yeah,
let's go just from a standpoint of I'm younger, so I've got less attention span or whatever.
Just boring.
It was just like nothing really happened, and it wrapped up too well.
It was, I didn't mind it, but I found it atypical. Let's just roughly talk about the premise, which is essentially a presidential candidate is running for president and is about to be elected. He's ahead in the polls and so on. But we find out an unspecified Asian country, which is clearly China. Yeah. Look of it, but they don't say, has developed some sort of technology calling something like molecular plasticity or something. They basically figured out some potion that can change skin cells to make them elastic or plastic, or i.e. capable of moulding for a short time, so you can actually mould someone's face completely, mould their fingerprints completely, and so on. And they're using this to create a duplicate or a double of the presidential candidate. They even talk about, we've re-engineered his teeth to be the same, and they've done work on his voice box to be the same. And there's this odd thing where they basically changed this particular candidate, and then he gets swapped and he becomes president, but then we also find out there's a bigger conspiracy where they're changing other people as well, right? And it runs as it's a thriller, really, isn't it? With a touch of sci-fi in terms of this super duper tech to change people's appearances.
A bit, but it's not very thrilling, is the problem.
No. I thought it was, I'll tell you what I liked about it. I'll tell you what I liked about it. See if there's anything you liked about it. I like the music. And I like the lighting. I thought the lighting and the music was very noirish, and I kind of like that. In many ways, this episode's been compared to a film made around the same time called The Manchurian Candidate, which was all about replacing sort of I think it was a politician. Oh, it's been ages since I've seen that. In much the same way as this story does. There's another story as well that was made about 5 years after this called Seconds, which was all about people being rejuvenated by surgery and various techniques to give them the appearance of someone completely different. And that also had that kind of paranoia kind of feel. This was a Cold War paranoia. I also liked some of the acting, but as a story, it felt very atypical. Now, it's an unusual choice also for the second ever episode. Such an atypical episode becoming the second ever episode of the show. And apparently I read it up on this. This was because it didn't have much special effects in it. I mean, it had the really weird bit where they inject someone and just to demonstrate the stuff, they kind of misshapen their face completely.
Yeah.
Which was really
strange.
weird. It was really weird. It was a plasticine head or something, wasn't it? And they just sort of, that was about, but apparently because there wasn't much other special effects, it meant that the production was much faster to deliver to the finished product than some of the other episodes, which is why this is the second one. Rather than apparently it was the seventh one made, but the second one aired because of the sort of time to do the special effects. So that's why. Now from this point on, they are much more typical Outer Limits. So I think you'll dig them much more. But yeah, this one did have flaws. Some interesting points though, right? It's about a presidential candidate who gets assassinated. Aired 60 days before JFK got killed.
Oh wow!
How about that? September the 23rd. This aired. JFK got killed on November the 22nd. So, not much in it, right? So there was that. Did you like... was there anything you liked about it, apart from...
Not really, because the acting wasn't great.
What do you think about the man
Especially
playing...
when...
Sorry, go on.
The guy who was playing the president, whenever there was some slight, like... disarray, like any problem, like people going, oh, you normally like this thing. He sort of like look shocked and then look at the camera.
He looked
and then
proper shifty, didn't he? He looked proper shifty.
It looked so sketchy whenever he's doing it.
And he kind of narrowed his eyes like he was Chinese. Yeah. I thought that was a cool touch, but you're right. It was crude compared to what we used to. But you got to remember, this was 1963, right? So, there is that. Though, in films at the time, they were slightly more... They were often more subtle than this. There was another bit that did make me laugh. It was kind of really weird and sketchy, which was when the Chinese scientist demonstrating the technology for the first time to his boss. At one point, he picks up like the face plate that he uses to mold someone's face, and he kind of strokes it lovingly and looks like, "Oh, if only I was alone with this."
Yeah,
that was so weird. It was so weird, right? So unusual episode. This it's do you feel it could have as a story it could have just been speeded up?
Yeah. Or you could have made it a way better ending.
Yeah, it was a flat. The ending is just
they catch him.
They catch him, and we see it 10 minutes in. Sorry, 10 minutes from the end. We kind of probably the shocker moment in this is where the vice president confronts his own doppelganger. Yeah, and then he realizes what's going on, and it just follows a cascade of events. Right? There's no sort of dramatic build up, is it? That's kind of. It's just like, oh yeah, A, B, C, D, end of the story, ended up. So
what I would have done was I'd have had it when he drags in the doppelganger at the end.
Yeah,
have it be the doppelganger that's dragged him in instead, basically.
Or at least leave that episode. Yeah, you could leave the episode on a question mark,
sort of dark cliffhanger. So it's just sort of like, that's wrapped up and we're carrying on.
Yeah. It's a weirdly reactionary episode. It's almost like playing to the paranoia of mainstream America, whereas the rest of the Outer Limits is like trying to be enlightening. It's almost like seeing an episode of Star Trek, which is about, don't try new things. Do it this way. You don't want to open your mind to new stuff. That would be weird, right? And this Outer Limits is kind of that way. It feels very mainstream, in what it's setting up. It's showing, we can't trust those dodgy Chinese, this kind of stuff, right?
I was thinking, was this like reactionary to Vietnam?
Vietnam hadn't really kicked off at this point, only a little. It's more likely it's a reaction to the Cold War between Russia.
To Chinese addition to the Cold War.
Possibly, but I feel that the Chinese were here perhaps a stand-in for Russia. Because there was much more confrontation with Russia at this time in America. You know, there was confrontations. There was the Cuban Missile Crisis, for example, had happened just before this. So I was wondering if it's to do with that. It did seem a very atypical episode. Now, the director of this actually went on to make some really good episodes, which in some ways felt the same thematically as this, but they are just much more stronger episodes. You just have to take my word for that until we get to this. Get to it, but they have a similar look and feel, but they're just they're better stories and they're executed better, and much more interesting in what they're doing. But this one was a little, it was unusual, and I remember this being better than it was. I kind of remembered it, and I thought, oh yeah, this is a pretty good episode. But while I was watching it, it's like, yeah, it's all a bit obvious. The plotting's a bit pedestrian. You're not getting you're getting a sense that no one's gonna. Certainly, in the last 10 minutes, you got no sense of, oh yeah, they're not gonna figure out what's going. They're not gonna stop this. Something's gonna happen to stop it. You never felt that. It was like, yeah, this is just gonna roll out to the end. The good things about it, I think, were the music and the lighting was kind of interesting. It was a decent enough premise, but not an Outer Limits premise. No. It felt like it belonged to another show.
It belonged to a much nicer show.
yeah.
It was a bit too, and the Americans saved the day. Admittedly, they were all Americans, but it was more like, it was very American superiority sort of thing.
Yeah, I did stumble across a website that was kind of funny, which actually ran it was a bit ranty. It was kind of saying, yeah, the politician in this, he was acting for the Chinese, but in fact, JFK was doing exactly the same things. So, real life, that was actually all right, okay. There was a bit of that. It was kind of I did like the vice president saying, I can't get over the shot you made, because all these little things keep happening, like, Dad, you haven't ate your special pudding that you love. I did
like his excuse to that. It's like, the female vote tends to go down if you put on weight.
Yeah, and he's about 60 or something, and stuff like that.
And they keep calling him eligible bachelor.
Yeah, I was a bit...
Not in a sarcastic way.
Yeah, weird. And also, he shot the snake. And he said, that's the first shot I've ever... I like the little touches like that, because it was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But it did work out for me. This was a weak episode. You'll have to, again, until you've watched some more, you'll have to take my word for it. But this one, some people like it, some don't. Just looking through the sort of comments and stuff. But I do agree. Firstly, it's atypical, and B, it's fairly plodding and pedestrian. That was my feeling. Okay, then let's wind up this one. We weren't too enamoured with this particular episode, were we? Really? Okay, so we'll be back to the Outer Limits in 6 episodes' time. But until then, bye from me.
Bye.
Is anybody out there?
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to